This part is really, they only want this part to be 5 minutes.
I can do it.
I mean, if you were to have the beautiful 45 minutes that they have, you can do it in 40. Well, you're a superstar. So there's a couple of different options for this one. One of the things that I know Sean told me you guys got is your blending board. Mine is not. I realized that these needed to be cut, so I am not prepared for this. But you guys have a blending board hard version, for lack of a better phrase, because it's 445 and I can't think of what that real word is for this. It's a hard version. Or you have a digital blending mat that comes with UFLI. This has a learning curve to it because it is something that doesn't save day after day. Sometimes it has some issues with the server. You're fine. But you can also do your manipulative letters in this one as well if you don't want to use the digital version, but the kids really like it. But the big takeaway here is you're doing the work of moving the letters, they're doing the work of decoding the word. Does that make sense? Later on, when we get to word work, you're going to be doing it together with your blending board, but this is all you so that they can use all their cognitive energy on reading the words that they have there. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I already went through and clicked all the letters that I'm going to need today, but anytime you hit this little waffle over here, it gives you every pattern you could possibly need. Now you can click all, but then they see every single sound letter correspondence up there and it gets a little bit overwhelming. The other thing to keep in mind is that there are only 3 parts. So a beginning, either letter or chunk of letters, a middle, and an end. So if you're building a word like the word slick, you're going to need to make sure you select the SL blend to be at the beginning, the I for the medial vowel sound, and then the CK digraph for the end of the word, because there is only room for 3 clicks, or 3 tiles, I should say. So it gets confusing for a teacher because we know that blends make separate sounds, but for this purpose, we are using a blend as 1 tile, even though if we were to map it, they would have separate sounds. Just to be clear on that. So once you click the ones that you want, you would hit the check mark. And the idea here is we're just building a word chain. So one sound is going to be traded out at a time. And so you're going to build the word, have the students say the sounds, and then blend the word together. And then you're going to replace one of the sounds. And so this is why this mat is helpful, this digital version is helpful, because all I have to do is click the letter and it replaces it for me. I don't have to drag and drop or erase or move any of the tiles out there to be able to do that. It just replaces it for me. I'm trying to put this down somewhere I won't lose it. All right, so for example, I'm looking at step 4, and the first word I have to build looks like this. Did you see how some of those tiles weren't available for me to click? That's because if they don't ever fall in a word in that spot, like it won't let me click S and then SL, because that's never in a word in order in the English language, so it just blurs it out there for you. If you were wondering what it was doing. It also tracks the things that I'm doing over here as I'm building it, and as I click a new letter, it'll pop up that thing that I just had up there right here. You don't have to have that, it's not going to be used for anything, but sometimes it's nice to be able to see that. Let's say I forgot to make sure that the CK was here. All I have to do is click back on my waffle, highlight it by tapping on it, hit the checkbox, but it does get rid of your tracking over here for whatever it's worth. So if I'm building this first one, I would say, what sound, class? What sound?
Yeah.
What sound? So variations would be, you would say what sound, and then you'd put the next one up there and say what sound, and then blend those 2 sounds together. And then I would put the CK up there, and then I would say what sound, blend the whole word, so that continuous phonation can happen. But as we're learning the resource, sometimes we forget all those little tips and tricks, so just know that that is the gold standard to be able to do that. Sound, what sound, blend it, what sound, blend the whole word. So what sound do we have here, class? Sick. Good job. If somebody said the wrong one, I would say the sounds in this word are sick, sick. Say the sounds with me. Sick, sick. Now say them on your own. Now you can do that with individuals. You can do that without your whole small group, whoever might need it. If there's a student that didn't respond even at all, or is in a daze, I might have them do it individually, or if I'm not sure if they said the correct sounds, I might have them do it individually as well. So now I'm gonna make it, it says that I need to go from sick to slick here. This is my presenter hat right now, because you wouldn't say that to the kids, because you're not gonna tell them the word, their job is to read it. So all you have to do is, on the initial spot, hit the blend that you need, and it takes and switches it for you. In the book, it'll say, do a couple, and if you run out of time, move on, because it has the most important ones first. It also gives you, if this part's too easy, on page 2, under word chains, you're going to see them go from onset rhyme level, so kiddos that are in using letter patterns, that would be perfect for, all the way up to phoneme level with some variation of the medial vowel. What we know is that switching the middle sound is the hardest for kids. And so if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, because it does seem easy, you can switch it up a little bit however you want. So this is not part of your normal lesson after step 8. This is just extra resources if you need it. All right, so then I would say, now obviously they're not going to go sound by sound, but you're going to have them blend the word in their head, or you can tap. So I would say, what sound? What sound? Blend it. What sound? Blend it. What sound? Blend the word. Good job. You can point to it. If you want to challenge them to do that on their own, you would say, I want you to blend these sounds in your head, and when we're ready, we're going to say them together. Or you can say them to your neighbor or whatnot. But at first, until they get used to the routine, you're going to want to make sure that they're doing it with you. Obviously, we can't practice this part unless you have the blending board up there, but we don't really have time to dig into that piece. But do you have any questions about this part? The idea is that you're just changing out one sound at a time. If middle sounds are too hard, keep the middle sound in there. And you will see some nonsense words in there occasionally, and it's just so that you can get from one real word to the next real word that comes after it with only changing out one sound. So, yes?
Do you ever have, like on the slide, does it ever have shown them the progression of the words, or will you always just have one word up there?
Down here, or over to the side right here it will. So if I were to change slick to lick, see how it's tracking the words that came before it right here? And then I have to change it to kick. I guess I could just look at my own monitor, and that would be easier. And then I have to change it to quick. So it always starts out with the first sound only. So if you are at a point where you want to do first, last, and middle, you're going to pick different words. They just might not be changing out one sound at a time, so it gets tricky. But they do start with the easiest. Did I say hardest before? What I meant was easiest. They start out with the easiest ones because the initial sound is the only one that's changing. Later on down in the lessons, they won't start with just the initial one. They'll be switching out everything. But right now, because we're only on lesson 45 out of 100 and something, it's still just the first sound. So then, of course, we have to go back to our checkbox because we just did all of these things that I didn't check in with first. And then for the first half, we only have one more thing left to do. And that sounds really wonderful, but this is the longest part. Some quick considerations for steps 1 through 4. We're not going to go through all of them, but just know that it's meant to be quick pace, even though it didn't feel quick here, because we're going over some of the instructional components. It's all spiral review. These are all things they've already learned before, aside from the phonemic awareness part, where they're getting warmed up with hearing the new concept. And it's just meant to be sufficient practice for them. So they might not have mastered the CK sound the day before, but they're going to be seeing it over and over and over again. All right, so with the new concept, what we talked about before, there's 6 different parts, and we're going to break it down by a couple at a time. It's very clearly connected to all of the steps that kids need to know in order to master it and put it into their long-term memory, from the way it sounds, where you see it, the way you form the letter, the way your mouth feels. And so all of these parts are very, very important to hit, even though it might feel long. When they can hear all of these pieces, they're better able to grasp the concept and master it sooner. So We start with the introduction. That language is right there for you, which is lovely. This is the one part, well, I will look at my manual and read it word for word so that I don't mess anything up or miss anything. This is also where I'm gonna start to put in my little dash marks for when I wanna move my slides. Because what you say is gonna also move with the board. Now, if you don't click your slide and you're behind a couple, you're not gonna hurt anybody. It's just makes it easier so that you know what to hit and when to hit it. And they do go together. So if you don't get it perfect, it's gonna be okay. That's not gonna make or break them. But the wording of the concept is very important. So that's why it's in bold, and that's why I'm not afraid to just read it right from here, because there's no way I can ever memorize all of it. What I love about this resource is it tells where you can find it in a word, which is something that I think is lacking from DRI. It doesn't always say, it'll give the rule, like when two letters come together and make one sound, like S and H, but it won't say, you're gonna see this at the beginning of a word, and you're gonna see it at the end of a word. Here are some examples. In longer words, you might even see it in the middle of a word. So I like that it gives that dictation or that language for kids so that they know what to expect, which is why when we learn CK, they're also gonna learn that the only time you're ever gonna use that, or you're never gonna use that blend, or that digraph, I mean, at the beginning of a word, in the English language. So it'll say that for you. This is the part that is helpful if you rehearse it, because you can stumble on it, and as we know with our kiddos, that the more downtime they have, the more time they have to mess around and play. And so if we can keep a quick, perky pace, they tend to stay more engaged, but it is a more engaging program because of the amounts of, or opportunities that they have to respond. So we're gonna try this. All right, today we're learning about a consonant digraph. A consonant digraph is when two consonants come together to make one sound. You already have learned about a consonant digraph. We've talked about CK. When C and K come together at the end of a word, they make one sound. The two consonants S and H have their own sounds, S and H. But when these consonants come together in words, they make a new sound, sh, like at the beginning of the word sheep. The consonant digraph SH can come at the beginning of the word, like in ship and shop. It can also come at the end of the word, like in fish and wish. Now you're gonna notice I didn't say the exact words, but it was not the important words that I changed out. So for example, I said the consonant digraph SH can come at the end of the word, like in fish and wish, instead of such as fish and wish. That part's not gonna make or break it. It's just the targeted words that they want you to say that well. This is gonna get into, when you see this card here, this is the articulatory gesture. I've seen some teachers actually take pictures of their own kids making the sounds and putting them up on the wall, which is really cute because they get to take ownership of that. But I'm gonna go back into my teaching hat here. To make the sh sound, put your teeth together and round your lips like this. Feels really funny. Pull your tongue back toward the back of your mouth. Be sure your voice is off. This is a quiet sound. So you could go like that. The sh sound is a continuous sound that can be stretched out. Now, them knowing continuous and stop is not the end-all be-all here. You just say it so that they know that that's a sound that you can blend. They don't have to be like, oh, the SH is a continuous sound that we can hold as long as we want to. They don't have to be able to do that. But you using the language is what's important. It's a continuous sound that can be stretched out. Watch me. You try it. Nice job. The next stop is the sound wall. Again, that's the optional one. If you want to do the sound wall, I can help you get those cards, but that is optional for you. What I want you to do to practice this part, to get familiar with it, you can do this lesson just like I did, or you can pick any lesson if you want to in the book. And I just want you to practice with your partner going through that language. And the partner that's listening, your job is to follow the script and make sure that they hit all the pieces they're supposed to give feedback in a nice way. So don't punch them. Questions? All right, go ahead.